The Dresden Files is one of the most popular urban fantasy series of the past 2 decades, and it clocks in at 16 full-length novels, multiple short story collections. Book 17 comes out in January of next year, and this is planned to go to I think 23 books, something like that. This is a pretty big commitment. But the question we're here to answer today is it worth your time? Should you read the Dresden Files? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks again for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about the Dresden Files, which is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. I love this series. I think it is a blast. It is one of the most emotionally invested series that I've ever been invested in my whole reading journey. I think this is truly incredible. But this series is a tough sell in some ways because it's so long at this point. 16 books that are published, multiple short story collections. Book 17 comes out. I mentioned this already in the intro. It's planned to go, I think, through 20 or 23 books, and then there's going to be like a trilogy at the end of it that closes the whole series. So I can't remember if it's 23 books in total or 23 books and then an ending trilogy. Either way, it's a pretty long series, and it's also notably like the first couple of books are not the strongest. Some people kind of bounce off of them. I personally liked the first couple of books. They were enjoyable enough that I still wanted to continue. But certainly this is one of those series where the further you get into it, the more you find yourself drawn in. And as you get to book 5, 6, 7, 8, you're going to really be amazed at how invested you are in these characters and in this world. It's truly something special. And this is the type of series that I think gives me the opinion that it's worth sticking out a book or two, even if it's not amazing, because you never know how a series might develop. Obviously, I'm not saying you should stick with it if you hate it. If you can tell from the first or second book that you just despise it, then yeah, don't continue. But a lot of people just don't love the first 1, 2, or 3 books in this series. And if that's you, I would urge you to persist, because Dresden is one of the best reading experiences that I've had in my entire life. So I want to talk about some of the things that make it so special, and then I'll talk about some of the drawbacks to help you decide whether or not this is a series for you. In terms of what makes this so special, I already kind of touched on it, but the character journeys are so good. You get so emotionally connected to Harry Dresden, our main character. So Harry is a private investigator and also a wizard. Is a kid or a teenager. He is orphaned at a very young age, and he discovers that he has magical abilities. And you kind of learn his backstory through like flashbacks and encounters with people in his life where the gaps are filled in, because when you first meet Harry, he's in probably his late 20s, I would guess, mid to late 20s. He's definitely an adult when we meet him, and he's been doing the wizard / private investigator thing for a little while. And then we start to learn what's going on in his life today, and then over the course of the books, we also get filled in a little bit on his backstory. But because of that, like him being an orphan, he has to form a lot of connections and kind of find his own family in the people and the communities he is a part of. And this is something that is super satisfying. So there's a lot of investment we get with Harry, because this is also a first-person point of view. So you're very much in Harry Dresden's head. I'm going to list that as a pro right now, and I'll talk about what I love about that. That's also a con for some people, and we'll get to that in the next section of the video. But in terms of being really connected and invested in Harry, you get to know him so deeply, and you understand the way he cares. Like, he cares so much about the people in his life, friends, family members. He doesn't have a lot of family, but the people he does have, he cares about deeply. He loves his friends. He cares about the community that he is a part of. He's a wizard in Chicago, and he cares about his city. And so we really come to learn about Harry and love him, and you start to figure out how he thinks and the types of jokes he'll make and the things that will make him angry and upset, the things that he will be emotionally attached to, and it's really satisfying. But the good character work is not just Harry. One of the things I've found sometimes with books that have a really strong first-person POV is that it can be, the secondary characters aren't always as well drawn, or at least you're not as invested in them as the main POV character. And I think Dresden Files is one of those books where I might like some of the secondary characters even more than Harry, even though I love Harry. Like he's kind of like Fitz, or one of those characters like Fitz from Realm of the Elderlings, where he's like a brother, a best friend. He's kind of an idiot sometimes and you want to slap him, but you also you die for him, even though he's fictional, but like you feel like you die for him. However, Dresden Files has such good other characters that, I don't know, I just love so many people in this series. He meets all sorts of people. You know, he partners with Karen Murphy, a detective on the police force, and you know she's someone he gets to know over the years. He partners with other characters too. Like I don't want to get too much into spoiler territory, even if it's like minor. But there are just a lot of characters that are so wonderful. And often Jim Butcher does this thing of like he'll introduce a character, and it takes a couple of books before you really start to love them, because you learn more about who they are, and Harry starts to build a rapport with them. And you'll have these characters that either you hate up front and you maybe come to love, or you don't necessarily hate them, but they're just going, okay, it's a new character, whatever. And then over the course of several books, all of a sudden you realize that if something happens to this side character, I'm going to lose my mind and be absolutely heartbroken. I love that. Not a lot of books get me in that way. Like very few books have so many side characters where I'm terrified of losing any of them. And that's very much how Dresden Files is. There are so many characters, and like, if I have to pick one character to be sacrificed in a given book or something, I can't do it. They're all so lovable. They're all so special. I can't sing enough praises about the character work. Another great aspect of character too, beyond them being lovable, is the character growth. I mentioned some characters you might start out hating, and then as you get to know them and things progress and they, like, people make decisions and circumstances change, you might find yourself liking or even loving a character you hated. But also just the natural growth of Harry's character as he goes through the things he goes through, and the challenges he faces that shape him. And honestly, some of the things Harry goes through in these books are pretty traumatic. And so we see him kind of change for the good and the bad. And that's what's fascinating, is like you see good character growth and development. You see Harry in a lot of ways step up and be an amazing human being, but you also see him kind of twisted, and you see him make bad decisions. You see him give in to darker aspects of his nature over the books. And that is some of the most interesting parts of the series. So the character work's great, and you get a lot of great character development across the board from quite a few characters throughout this story. Another thing I absolutely love about Dresden Files is the world building. So this is an urban fantasy. Harry lives in Chicago, but the world building is such that like there are different realms. There's the realm of fairy, and there's like the summer court and the winter court. So you have all of the fae and the I don't know how to pronounce it. The she I don't know how to pronounce it. Like the various fae creatures. They are great. The realm of fairy is so cool. But you also have like wizard councils, all of the lore you can think of in our world about various creatures and monsters, werewolves, vampires, of course, you know, Bigfoot, all sorts of crazy things. They all kind of connect in some way. Merlin, like the legend of Merlin, has like some historical roots, and obviously Harry Dresden is a wizard. And so you get to see how the wizarding world is situated and how it overlaps with the normal human world. And I think Jim Butcher has some really good explanations for how normal people don't know about magical stuff. For example, if you have electronics around magic, the magic causes technological devices to kind of like spaz out and die. And so phones and recording devices and things like that, they're always going on the fritz whenever Harry Dresden is around and using magic, which is kind of perfect because some of the things that could be plot holes naturally just don't become plot holes because, oh, how come there's not more footage of magical creatures? It's because magical creatures literally mess with the way technology works, and it goes out if it's too close to magic. So things like that are really good. I also really love, related to the world building and the story and the characters, but is also the stakes. The stakes of the story as you progress through the series, they just keep mounting in a way that is incredibly compelling and satisfying. And so like the first couple of books are good, but by the time you get to the middle of this series, the stakes are so much higher, and the things that Harry gets drawn into are really monumental. And you just wonder how it can keep building, and yet it does. And now here we are in book 16, and it is truly, truly massive, the things that are going on. And this kind of becomes an epic fantasy. Like, it's still urban fantasy, but this becomes an urban epic fantasy series by the later books. And it's really cool to watch it turn from like a mystery monster of the week, book by book, like perspective of just like whatever Harry Dresden's dealing with. You know, this is the case for book one for right now. But as you move along, the story becomes more interconnected, and again, things build, and before you know it, it's this epic fantasy that's taking place between the realms of the Fae and the human world and all these other supernatural factions and beings that Harry is entangled with. It gets so good, so fascinating. So those are a lot of the things I love about this series. Let's talk for a minute about some of the drawbacks. As I mentioned, the first couple of books are a bit on the weaker side. I still liked them. So, you know, I think if this series really clicks with you, you probably will have fun with it from the get-go. That being said, the first couple of books, while they were fun, they weren't anything crazy. Like, it was just a good time. It was really as you get later in the series, I think books 5, 6, 7, 8 is where somewhere in that range, this shifted from a good time to, wow, this is really something special. And then as you get into books 10, 11, 12, all of a sudden this goes from this is really special to this might be one of my favorite series. And that's kind of where I'm at with this, is this became one of my favorite series. This is one of the few series that I've reread like 3 or 4 times as an adult, which is pretty rare for me. I don't have a lot of reread time. So, but again, on the negative side, it might be slow starting. You might not love the books. Another downside that I hear often from people is that some people really just do not connect with Harry Dresden's character for a couple of reasons. Some people don't love his sense of humor or just the way he thinks. So you might just naturally not love the character. And if that's the case, I mean, the whole series is very much from his perspective. You're in his head the whole time, pretty much. So that could be a make or break. If you just really hate being in Harry's head after the first book or two, that's probably a sign that it's not for you. The other thing people don't like, though, is they might kind of like Harry, but Harry has some outdated views. He's a little bit... his worldview is a little misogynistic, especially earlier on in the series. Like he views himself as kind of an old school knight in shining armor. And he's very much modeled after like detectives from like noir, 1930s, 40s, 50s, like that kind of just noir detective that is there to save the damsel in distress. And that very much is what Jim Butcher was trying to write at the start of the series. And so I think part of it was stylistically, he was just trying to replicate that type of thing, which inherently has some more, I think, misogynistic undertones. But also he wrote Harry Dresden to be kind of this lonely dude who doesn't really have family, and he cares about people. He does have friends, and he starts to have more people in his life through the series. But he's just a really lonely guy, and like he wants love. He's kind of starved for it. And while he is like, he loves women in a way, he's also kind of, the way he thinks about them is sometimes kind of objectifying. So that's something to be aware of, because that really bothers some people. And so if that really bothers you, it might bother. I think it's still worth trying the series because there's enough good in this series. And I do think Harry grows a lot as a person, and he gets better about that. And Jim Butcher gets better about writing that the further the series goes. But it's a thing that's there. And I think there is some in-world explanation for that as well, because some of the creatures and like the people that Harry is dealing with are like immortal fairy creatures that are inherently supernaturally beautiful. And there's like a magical allure to them as well. And so Harry is around these, beautiful divine creatures that are magically attractive. And so that is like legitimately part of the world building. However, it's still going to read at times as objectifying. So be aware of that. That is definitely a thing that some people do not click well with. The final drawback that I can think of is simply that the publication of this series has slowed in the past 5-10 years. The gap between Skin Game and Peace Talks, books 14 and 15, was like, 7 or 8 years, something like that. Maybe not quite that long. Maybe it was 6 or 7 years. And then Peace Talks and Battleground came out within about a year. And now it's been another 3-4 years, although we are getting book 17 in January. So it seems like publication's ramping back up. These used to come out like every year or two. Jim Butcher did go through some personal stuff for a while, so I think that was a big part of what slowed him down. And it seems like he's really coming out of that, because again, we got 2 books in like 2020, 2021. And then it's been 3-4 years, or it's been 4 years now, and we're getting book 17. So hopefully we're going to get book 18, and again, in maybe a couple of years. And if we get back on that cadence, then, It still might be a little while before the end of this series, but it at least is coming out at a semi-regular cadence, it seems like. So I'm very happy about that. I don't think that's as much of a problem anymore. So those are the good things and the bad things about this series, and ultimately, I just want to leave you with my recommendation that this is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. It's one of the few series that I want to reread this every year. I don't always have time to reread it every year, but it's like Lord of the Rings, in which I want to experience it, and then a year or two goes by, and I'm like, I miss these characters, I miss this world, I want to jump back in. And now that we have book 17 coming out, I'm tempted to start a reread from book 1, but with everything on my TBR, I don't know if I'll have time. So I might just go back into book 17 when it comes out. But that being said, this is amazing. The audiobooks are incredible. They're narrated by James Marsters, who played, I'm forgetting the name of the character from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You'll, if you've watched Buffy, you'll know who this guy is. James Marsters is an incredible voice talent. He does a great job bringing Harry Dresden to life. So if you like audiobooks, or you just audiobooks are a convenient way for you to consume books, the Dresden Files are some of the best. And I've read it physically, I've listened to it, and I recommend it either way. It's so good. I love this series. I should probably stop the video because I'm just going to keep repeating myself again and again with how good this is. I hope you read this. I hope you love this. This is very popular, but I think because of how long it took between publication for some of the recent books, it's kind of fallen off the hype wagon a little bit. I don't hear it talked about super frequently on Book Talk, Bookstagram, BookTube. I hear about it occasionally, but not nearly as much as it deserves. So hopefully with book 17, which is called 12 months, I think. Hopefully with book 17, we're going to get a resurgence of Dresden love in the fantasy community. I certainly am going to be, at the very least, reading 12 months, starting the day it comes out, and I might have to dip back into a reread. So, have you read The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher? What did you think about it? Is this one of your favorites? Did you hate it? Either way, I'd love to hear what you thought about it. And of course, as always, I appreciate you watching and hanging out with me for a little bit. And yeah, like and subscribe. I'll be back soon with more fantasy, sci-fi, horror, speculative fiction content. Thanks for watching.